Marhaba and welcome to the Habibis, three game developers drinking good Arab tea. I'm your host for today, Fauzi Mesmar.
And I'm your co-host, Osama Dorius.
And
Two can play at this game.
yes,
Usually three play at this game.
you're doing it better though.
I mean, unfortunately, only two are playing at this game this time. Yeah, we're still missing our other co-host, Rami,
The third co-host,
the
somewhere in the
third
air.
co-host. Probably flying. Hopefully landing soon.
Indeed. How you doing,
Yeah.
Osama?
How you been? I was gonna ask you the same thing. All right, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
It's getting hot in Europe, so that's pretty good. It's getting like
I
proper
heard.
hot.
Yeah, someone shared that it was in Prague. I think it was like 37 degrees yesterday or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was 16 here,
Wow.
Celsius, of course.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Like 16 for Montreal. I'm like, yeah, t-shirt and shorts weather. I can't go outside. This is great. But 37, that's like uncharacteristic.
No, it's
for
like
this
approaching
time
the
of year.
40s pretty much most of Europe. And like in Sweden, it's like 22. It's boiling here.
Wow. Wow. How are you living?
I'm loving it. I'm a desert boy. Of course I'm loving it.
Of course, feels like home. Yeah. No, yeah, it's great. I mean, for us, we had a couple of rainstorms. I like rain. I think it's programmed in me from childhood because my parents also grew up in a desert climate. So rain is baraka. It's a blessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time it rains, my parents were in a really, really good mood, and I think that rubbed off on me.
Oh, that's nice, man.
I mean, there are some situations where I'm like, hey, we're in the middle of a barbecue. I wish it wasn't raining just this minute. So it's not like it's not that universal.
It's not like you're breaking into like a rain dance every 10 minutes.
No, I'm not. But just in general, when it's raining, rain is life to us. So growing up, I still have that.
Osama, in Canada, it's not like the US. You guys have like proper long vacations, right? Like,
Yes,
more than 10 days a year.
It's in between the US and Europe. We tend to give more vacations with seniority, but the honest truth is entry level is usually about 2 weeks. It's still 10 days.
Okay, still 10 days.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Entry level. I mean, I'm not entry level and I haven't been for a very long time.
Yeah.
But like, it took me a very long time to get 5 weeks of vacation, which I think is like the minimum in Sweden.
Yeah, and I like I was about to say, like, well, like the following complaint you might not be able to to relate to, because like most people go on long vacations in the summer here in Europe, like July and August. Some people take most of July and half of August.
Wow.
So like there are times in which like all of all of July is a work like is a write off, especially I think in the Nordics, or I know for a fact in Sweden, is that like by law you can't deny somebody a vacation. So if somebody applies for like over 3 weeks of vacation during July, you can't say no.
Wow.
Yeah, so people can take long holidays, and like generally in Sweden, July is the summer where nothing happens, and I think it often confused our our colleagues in the U.S. Like in whatever country work in, because like there's usually contact, then July there's silence.
I don't think I've ever taken more than 2 weeks in a row. So I can't even, the concept of taking all of July and half of August on vacation is so foreign to me. Like even when I have 5 weeks, generally that's 2 weeks, and then 1 week I forget to take that pushes over to the next year.
Yeah.
If I even take any vacation that year at all. Like I've
Wow.
already left jobs with 3 months of untaken vacation, which is terrible, and it's my fault, and I'm trying my best not to do that anymore.
No, man, you got to take your vacations. I like to instead of taking them all in a row, I like to like split them over the year, so I can like have a couple of days here, so like link to a long weekend, so it becomes like a nice week off. A week here, a week with Christmas, so it's like a longer vacation. Like I like to split them around, but in the summer I like to take 2 to 3 weeks maybe. At least, but I guess just me saying that I can like I still have 2 to 3 weeks and split vacation days around is already foreign.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for anyone who gets it, like who gets that kind of time off. I think it's really important, and I think people need to move in that direction. The live to work and work to live thing is old. It's not good. I think we need to move past it.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
because that happens, and this is maybe another part that you can't relate to. June is usually the busiest month of the year. It's just because
Oh,
like everybody tries to finish whatever work they have in their hands before they go on vacation.
wow. Okay, no, that is I've never heard of that before. That I cannot relate to. For
Yeah.
us, it's usually we get something similar right before. Like from my experience, it's the longest break is winter because it's like almost every studio gets a compulsory at least 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And the week before that, some people take it off. So that means that the end of November almost always has a big giant milestone
Hmm.
because afterwards it's going to be really difficult to keep anybody like focused because half the teams are going to be missing this week or that week or the week after that. So like I think your June is our November.
I see. I think we have the same in November again. So it'll be like June and November.
Wow,
Be very
twice.
similar. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So like around this time of the year is when things get super busy for me, and then like everybody starts going off on vacation, so things get relaxed all of a sudden.
I like it. Yeah, we have a construction holiday here where, in Canada specifically, where something similar happens. We don't have as much vacation, but a lot of people end up taking holidays in July specifically. But we're talking
Yeah,
about like a 2 week period. So it's not that pronounced, right? Not a month and a half,
yeah,
not
yeah.
even
Of
close.
course,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. So have you been so like hopefully getting some time for breaks and stuff, and doing I don't know, video games or watching some stuff?
So I had a four. I just come off now that we're recording this on a Tuesday. I just came off of a 4 day weekend,
Ah, nice.
which was really nice. We had one day to do the typical errands and what have you on Friday, one day for yard work, and then 2 days where I just did nothing or close to my version of nothing. Play
Yeah,
video games and read books and go for walks. I actually had a long stint, like hours and hours, where I just sat in my now cleaned up yard because we spent all of Saturday doing yard work. So it was a really, really nice looking yard. Just sitting down, listening to audiobooks or reading like paper books.
that sounds
And it
very
was so
nice, actually.
nice.
Yeah, sounds so
Yeah, it was so
relaxing.
nice. The weather was near perfect. Like it fluctuated between maybe you need a sweater to you could be out in short and t-shirt weather. Not too hot that's unpleasant at all. Like it was very 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 good weather.
Oh,
Um,
while raining all the time, or is it like pleasant for
it
most people? What you mean?
it rained today.
Oh,
So
okay.
today is the rainy day, and today I went for a walk right before it rained before starting work today, which felt really really good. And now it's raining, so I'm in a good mood while working.
Ah,
So it's
super,
perfect. Really, everything worked out perfectly the last 4 days.
super. What video games were
Yeah.
you playing?
So the big one is one of the my most anticipated games of this year for many reasons, and I'll give the disclaimer soon. Is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge,
Oh, nice.
which hit Game Pass on June 16th. And this was my most anticipated game for many reasons.
Hmm.
Number one, I am a huge beat 'em up Ninja Turtles fan. I played Ninja Turtles the arcade game and Turtles in Time and Manhattan Project like several times over. Um, I played the original arcade one. I wasted so much money on it before I understood that you're not really meant to beat those games because it costs a fortune to do so. And then I got the NES version, and later got the Super NES. The Turtles in Time, which is probably my favorite beat 'em up of all
It's
time,
mine as well.
arguably.
Turtles in Time Zone is
Yeah,
that's my favorite Ninja Turtles game, probably.
definitely. Oh, Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter is up there too. It's actually a very underrated fighting game. People discounted it because they thought it was a crappy licensed fighter. It's actually solid. It's really really good. So
Hmm.
if you haven't played the Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter, I would highly recommend giving it a
I
shot.
feel like I might,
Uh,
but I don't remember playing it too much.
Yeah, it's solid. It was really hard to find people to play with you because everyone just thought it was a licensed fighting game. They're terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like there was like a whole bunch of really bad Dragon Ball Z and Power Rangers like fighting games in the same era, and I think a couple of good Dragon Ball Zs, but mostly like just licensed bad ones. But yeah, Turtles in Time is still my favorite. But like every time someone mentions that, I'm like, have you tried Tournament Fighter? Because it's also freaking
Yeah.
solid. It's really really good. So yeah, the other reason I really like it is because some of my friends worked on it, so I'm very biased. But Tribute Games, based here in Montreal, that worked on the um, what was why is the name uh, escaping me now? They worked on that Ubisoft beat 'em up game that was pixel art
Brawlhalla.
as well. No, no, no. The name escapes me now, but it'll come back to me when it's too late. Either way, they worked on other similar games, so they have a track record. They have one of my friends, Stéphane Boutin, who works there. Uh, at some point, I worked on an indie like action puzzler game with a small group of people. It was a side project called Heroes Never Lose. He drew some of our backgrounds. So he's a really really solid pixel artist and a friend of mine. And he did the backgrounds for TMT Shredder's Revenge.
Hmm.
So like there's a bias there because I'm rooting for my friends, of course, to make their game, but they nailed it. They really, really, really nailed it. It was such a good experience, and of course, as with any game that I love, I always have a laundry list of improvements that I would suggest because that's just how game designers work. But if you just focus on what was good about it, it really feels they nailed the feeling of a solid beat 'em up, like the nostalgia that comes with it, without all of the old design choices that wouldn't feel good now. Do you
Okay.
know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you play it and you're like, this is how I remember playing beat 'em ups. This is like, but it's just an improvement on every way.
What are
It
the
kind of
improvements that like made the design more modern?
so first of all, there's a dodge button,
Ah, okay.
and you could dodge forward or dodge backwards. So already there's like you don't need to just wiggle the joystick to move out of a like range of the collision of an attack to avoid it in an awkward way because you just don't have the time to escape some attacks.
Hmm.
Now you could intentionally dodge through them or dodge backwards. Some attacks you have to dodge through, some attacks you have to dodge backwards. There's also an uppercut like move where you could interrupt enemies that are in the air. Now, also, you have a double jump. What's important about this is that you know how in the old Ninja Turtle beat 'em ups, when you pressed the attack in the air, determined which of the two air attacks you get, and it was kind of finicky because you're not in the air a long time.
Yeah.
Now the attack is whether like is different whether you press jump once or you're in the middle of a double jump. So you had more control. Like you could double jump quickly and press the attack button, and it'll always be the same attack that comes out. So you have a lot more aerial control of what you do to like control the air. Little things like that.
Is
The
it a drop
range
kick? It's usually a drop kick.
so the drop kick is what you get if you're only pressing jump once, and the floating down slowly move, like the escape danger on the ground move, is the one that you press if you double jump, which makes sense because if you want to stay in the air a long time, now you can.
Oh,
You can
nice.
do two jumps, stay in the air, hover over whatever danger, and get over the obstacle or what have you. So all that is fantastic. There's now the other thing is they have a super attack that you could charge. If you remember before, the super attack used to hurt you,
Hmm.
take off. There was a risk reward in that sense, which wasn't pleasant, like a pleasant experience because you're like, okay, I have to do this, but I'm going to lose health, and it was too like already. If you need the super attack, it's usually because you're overwhelmed. You don't want to have the added bonus of losing a bit of health. In the arcades, this made sense in a bad way because they wanted you to spend more quarters, so they wanted you to put yourself in danger and lose health if you're using the super. But in this game, it didn't really make sense. Like, it wouldn't really make sense, right? So they
Yeah.
removed that. You're There are two game modes. There's an arcade game mode, which really functions like an old arcade beat 'em up, and there's a story mode, which is honestly like Arcade Plus. The story mode has a world map that just allows you to go back and play levels again. So that's one addition. There are character cameos that you can unlock. So if you could find this or that character, like the when you find them, these characters give you objectives to pick up collectibles, and all of the collectibles are you break a trash can or you break this thing, and you find something between. So basically, all it changes in the gameplay is that now you have to break everything if you want to get all the collectibles, which doesn't, like, in my honest opinion, it doesn't really add much to the game. I know there are some players who like collecting things, and maybe this is a thing that's appealing to them. It didn't really add anything to me. Some of the collectibles I even picked up before I found the cameo character, which was like, oh, I guess this is going to be associated to another character, and it was. I collect like I finished some of those like without even seeking to do it. I finished some of those, and I didn't finish others. And I'm not a player type that cares about collecting, so I won't be going back to complete that. But it's a little extra, right? That
Yeah.
isn't in the arcade version.
For people that like it, they will appreciate it.
Exactly. And but I love the cameos. I love that you could find characters from the lore of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And the last addition is they have a poorly explained and feedbacked progression system where your characters gain XP almost invisibly and upgrade based on how many it looks like how many people you beat up. The upgrades themselves are fine. You get, like, for example, to store more super bars, so you don't have to like have the bars full. You have one super bar now. You can have the bars full. You have three super bars. You also gain new attacks, like if you do the super while you're in the air, it does a different super, that kind of thing, right? Or if you have all three bars, you could do a super or an ultimate super or whatever you want to
Yeah.
whatever they call that. I don't remember. You also have more health. You have more stock lives, that kind of thing. The thing is, I couldn't find, and if this is my failing, that's my failing. I couldn't find a way where I could see where my progression is, what's coming up, like that kind of thing, where you could
Hmm.
get excited about. Oh, I'm gonna level up Splinter to level 8, so I could get like this or that. That was just like invisible. It was just once in a while you play and you're like, oh, I got this now. Okay, and it's fine. Like it's a choice. It's not the choice I would make. I think it would have been a lot cooler to know what was coming and to have anticipation for it, and a more typical. But like I guess there was no feedback other than you got the thing, not how close you are, or how well you're doing.
Hmm.
What the other thing that this does, and this is not a problem, it's just a thing a dynamic you have to be aware of. I played the game and finished it in one sitting. I started playing with April for the first level, and then I switched to Splinter because they weren't turtles, and I wanted to see what their animations are.
Ah, that's
I
cool. There's non-turtle
Yeah,
characters.
yeah, and I unlocked eventually Casey Jones, and those are the non-turtle characters. So you have 7 characters to choose from, 4 turtles and 2 non-turtles. I absolutely loved April and Splinter's animations.
Hmm.
April is really really funny. Like, she uses her microphone and her camera and like that kind of stuff. She's a reporter, and you could see it in every animation. Pixel art is absolutely gorgeous. But I really liked Splinter, so I stuck with Splinter a long time. Like, I actually played most of the game with Splinter until I finally lost. I lost at there were like 16 levels. I lost at level 13 for the first time. When I lost, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to try a different character now. So I switched to a turtle, but now I couldn't play with a turtle because level 13 was too hard to play with a level 1 character.
Ah, they
So,
don't catch up.
no, there's no catch up. So I'm like, I have a choice here. I could start the game over with my favorite turtle, Raphael,
Hmm.
or I can continue with Splinter and finish the game. So I continued with Splinter and I finished the game. Like the whole game took me maybe 3 hours to beat. My kids were jumping in and out, playing with me and not playing with me. They're not as emotionally attached to either the Ninja Turtles or beat 'em ups, but they
Yeah,
wanted to play with Dad, so they jumped
but
in
it's
and
couch
played.
co-op to 4 players, maybe.
Yes, it's up to 4 players out of the
Okay,
7 characters that you choose.
nice.
So yeah, we didn't play more than 3 though. We were 3 at most, but it
Hmm.
played really well. Like it was really really cool. Oh, there's actually one thing mechanics wise I'll go back to is that the grab is still awkward. The grab is still walk towards. Remember when you used to grab the foot soldiers to be able to
Yep.
throw them?
Yeah, to walk
It's still
towards
like
them and
it's
then
still walk
punch or
towards them.
something.
Yes,
Yeah.
And I still think that could have used a dedicated button. There's a taunt button, but no grab button, and I thought that I still find that's odd. But
Yeah.
okay, like it's not deal breaker, of course, but it's still odd because sometimes I found myself like before grabbing people when I didn't mean to, and then being confused why I'm not moving,
I
and then
think
realizing like that kind of thing.
I think this probably was one of those things that the dev team spent like most of the production talking about. Should we
Yeah,
make it its own button, but
yeah.
or should we keep it as it is for authenticity's sake? And then they opted of one over the other.
I agree, and something like that. I think you could always have an alternate button that forces it, or a toggle, or something like that. But
Yeah,
it's a personal preference on my side. I like fighting games in general have moved towards buttons for grabs instead of like a direction and a button.
yeah.
So like I think that's the trend. People want to be more intentional
It's a
about their
lot more
choices.
deliberate when it's a button.
Exactly. Exactly, more intentional is exactly what I meant. So anyway, back to the progression. So
Yeah,
then I just finished the game with mostly Splinter, and started the game over just to see the animation sets of the other turtles and Casey Jones that I have just unlocked. They're all great. All the animations are really, 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 really well made. Like if you remember the original Turtles games, they shared like 90%, 95% of their animations.
yeah.
This is not the case here. Even their run animations are different. Everything is different. And
Mhm.
it's like oozes with their personality. Like so much personality. The choice of the bosses, if you're a fan of the Ninja Turtles, if you grew up with them, the choice of the bosses are amazing. They just pull from all the lore, all the most colorful characters. They all have like really cool voice acting. The music in the game is really, really cool. It's like sometimes reminiscent of the movies, sometimes reminiscent of the cartoon. It's like the whole game is a love letter to Ninja Turtles beat 'em ups, but specifically Ninja Turtle beat 'em ups. It I had a smile playing it throughout. It's very short lived. Like I said, I beat it in 3 hours, and I'm sure
Those
that
games are
like
usually like that, right? They're the three
they
hour,
are
or way
exactly.
less actually than 3 hours.
Yeah. Like the Simpsons arcade game, which I thought was the longest game ever, had 5 worlds. It just got so impossibly hard by the last one. I never finished it until I got emulators and had infinite coins, and I was like, wow, this game's actually incredibly short. It's just I spent hours on it because of like the monetization in the arcades. They make it like really, really, really difficult at the end. But like I'm happy it's short lived. I don't think I would have wanted more. I got to see all the enemies I wanted to beat. Like the you know what I mean. I saw all the content and I ended off on a high note. I don't need more of it. Like it was perfect for me.
So, are you ready
Yeah.
to play a game called the Beat 'em Up Checklist?
What
I'm
is
gonna
this for
ask.
real?
Yeah, no, I'm making this up as we're going. So I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
questions about this game that basically are you find them in any beat 'em up
Yes.
and see if this game has them. Yes or no.
Of course.
All
Go
right.
for it.
So does this game have street punks with like mohawks?
It does not. It has foot soldiers,
Close.
and they have really cool animations. So I would say halfway there. Foot
Okay.
soldiers are kind of punks, right?
Cool. So it's it's a half on this one.
Yes,
All right.
yes,
Question number two: does this game have a flashing go UI
yes,
element that appears on the right side of the screen?
yes. It absolutely does. I didn't see it often because I really wanted to see all of the
Yes.
levels, so I moved quick. But it
Yeah.
was there.
Okay. Does this game is transitions in this game basically the characters jumping off screen
Yes, or sometimes if they are on a vehicle, it's them gliding off screen on that vehicle.
on that vehicle? Does it
Yes.
contain motorbikes or jet skis?
Yes, it does. It contains like you are on a hovercraft and you're
Uh huh.
fighting things that are like elevated hovering around you, including foot soldiers and like elevated motorbikes that are hovering.
Okay. Does this
So it
game
still
have?
counts.
Oh, that does count. So it's yes on both accounts.
Yes,
um,
yes.
does this game have a lot of stagger as you attack? So the enemy has a long stun duration for every attack, so that you can
Some
combo easily.
enemies Yes, some enemies more than others. Some are a lot more pronounced, but yes, definitely.
Is there a relatively large or chubby character that just doesn't get hurt in the same way that other characters do?
Only the bosses. There's one boss in particular, which maybe I won't spoil who it is, but that doesn't take any damage unless certain conditions are met.
Okay. Do you break barrels or
Yes,
boxes or crates
yes,
in this game?
yes, yes. Constantly.
Do you find chickens or pizza, a grilled chicken or a pizza to restore health?
Pizza for sure. And you have multiple variety of pizza that give you different things. All
Uh,
the flavors.
do you pick up pipes or knives or weapons
No,
lying on the floor?
no, you have your
Because there's
weapons and
signature
nothing
weapons
else.
for each one of those
Exactly.
characters. That's the
Exactly. So it
okay.
wouldn't make sense in this game.
Fair enough.
I love this checklist. Did you just make it up on the fly?
I'm making this up as we go.
That's a very solid checklist.
when you do you have a number of lives and then you have to continue for an
In the
arbitrary
arcade,
reason?
yes, both in the arcade version and the story version. So you have to
Okay.
beat a level in within those lives in the story version.
Wow. When
Yeah.
you throw a character or like an enemy character on another enemy character, does that cause knockout a knockdown as well?
It does, absolutely. And you can even do it multiple times if you're fast enough.
Uh, yeah, it passed every single item on the checklist. This is,
Pretty much. Except for the weapon off the ground, which wouldn't have made sense in
and
this
we
kind of
have the
game.
design reason why is that. So now we
Yeah.
can say for absolute certainty, especially after conducting this very thorough examination, that this is indeed a beat 'em up.
It is, and it is honestly one of the like I say this confidently is one of the best beat 'em ups I've played. It's really how you do like a remake. It's not exactly a remake, but it feels like nostalgia was like a continuation of the old games with just improvements. And I really hope that they continue this trend. I like the new Streets of Rage that came out, Streets of Rage 4 that came out
Yeah, I was
like
about to
last year.
mention that. You played that?
I did play it and I did enjoy it. I think this is a better game for some reason, and Streets of Rage are better for other reasons. I think the combat system in Streets of Rage is overall better. I think
Yeah.
the people who made it like improved on that more than anything else. But I really like the character design. I like the art style. I like a lot of things about it. I feel the nostalgia in this is like through the roof, like the personality, the choice of characters, the colors, like it really like it made me happy in that sense. And I'm really hoping that Tribute continues this trend and takes all my favorite beat 'em ups and does like sequels to them, like the X-Men one that was really good, the six-player one. I don't know if you remember, or
Mhm.
the Simpsons one that was really good, or there was the Captain Commando or whatever. I really hope that this opens up their options. There was even a Punisher one with Nick Fury that was pretty good. There were so many good beat 'em ups from my childhood that I would love to see them explore.
Yeah, I think with I like that the Streets of Rage 4 tried to add a bit more on the combat system because I really think that this is a part of the nostalgia that we don't necessarily need. Just mashing the one
Yes.
button, like there was a satisfaction to mashing the one button the entire time because it's a pick up and play thing that you play in the arcade, right? You just look at the
Yep.
machine once, and then you kind of need to jump in and figure it out, no matter even if you joined in like halfway through a session, right? Kind of like what your kids did, in which like the jumping in and out. And
Yes.
if you're adding an element of progression, like that basically increases damage output, it seems like there is a player progression that needs to happen. And by player progression, I mean like player skill progression, like you as a
Yes.
player kind of growing as you're enjoying this experience. Because
Yes.
that's why these games can go on for too long. After some time, because like there's only so much enemy behavior you can do with that limited set of options, and there's only so much player skill set that you can learn with just moving the stick around and hit that one button.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree 110%. Hey, something came back to me.
Yes.
So the game that they made while they were at Ubisoft before they formed Tribute Games
Hmm.
was the Scott Pilgrim video game, the beat 'em up.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes, so that was their like they did it with Paul Robertson, who was their animator, but Stefan Boutin did the background, and like it was that same team that then went on to make their own studio and make other games. So yeah, it fits, of course.
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, and like that game actually suffered from similar problems. I think what they're missing is a system designer because that game combat was decent, the art was amazing, it really felt really good, but you had money that you went into stores to buy things and you didn't really understand how these things like made like there was no good progression system in that sense. There's no good economy system in that sense. I don't know if you remember Scott Pilgrim, but you bought food that kind of gave you stat bonuses, and it wasn't clear what they really did. And also, you leveled up, but you didn't see what was coming. It was a very, very similar type of, like if you compare that with Castle Crashers, which was also a beat 'em up that was nostalgic. You could see the map beforehand. You know where you're going to a certain degree. Your characters you put the points while you get them, so you see a sense of progression. You know what level you are and how long it's going to take because you see the XP bar on your interface. Even though it wasn't a great system because it could have been improved. Castle Crashers kept you playing because you kept wanting to upgrade because you wanted to see what happens when you leveled up specifically your agility or specifically your strength or specifically your defense, and you gained abilities at thresholds that are clearly delineated. So it had that going for it. I feel that this is the lacking here.
Hmm.
The lacking is not as lacking in Ninja Turtles. Feel like they've had some learnings and they've improved on it, but that's the only thing that keeps it from, in my eyes, being a perfect beat 'em up. Is it's missing that, like to make it a new age perfect beat 'em up. The combat, by the way, it is a one button mash that you do an auto combo.
Yeah.
That is basically how it is. But with the addition of dodging and dodging at the right time and combining the jump with the attack to give you other options,
Hmm.
I felt it was enough for a 3 hour game.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. If it was going to be a longer experience like Castle Crashers, it would have needed more depth. But because it was a 3 hour game, that was enough. You got introduced to enough tools, like to keep it interesting for that long.
That sounds like a neat game. It's one of those games that I would love to have. Like, this is a game I wouldn't play on my own. Like, I would love to bring friends and play along with them.
Yep, yep. Well, if you want, we can bring it the next time we meet in person. Hopefully, that'll happen at some point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd play it from start to finish with you,
Ah,
absolutely.
that's
And
great.
this
That'll
time
be a lot
I'd
of
pick a
fun.
turtle.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'd pick a turtle this time because I did it last time. So
We do all the couch co-op stuff. We play this. We play some Captain Tsubasa. Play some Mario Strikers.
love it. I'm
Maybe
in.
some Street Fighter. I mean, if we're at
Yeah,
Gamescom, maybe they'll have Street Fighter on the show floor, like
maybe
the
that
new
would be
one.
amazing. Yeah. They might. I mean, it's a big enough show to have that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a game I played, but I don't know if you want to hear about it, but I played a few others that I could talk about briefly.
Oh, of course, I want to hear about it.
One is a game called Chorus,
Chorus.
which is a how do I describe this? Because it kind of mixes a few genres. It's a narrative space sci-fi flight like airplane game where you're like in space
Hmm.
dogfighting, but there's a lot of narrative components. Like there's missions, there's RPGs, you talk to people, but you never get out of the actual ship. You're in the
Okay.
ship the entire time, and
Okay.
it's a solo ship, like you're one person manned craft. Um, and it feels good. It does a lot of the I'm floating in space shooting things parts
Yeah.
well. Honestly, I didn't play it long. I played it for a couple of hours because the rest didn't really appeal to me. Like there was a lot of exposition of story right at the beginning
Hmm.
without any context that I didn't feel attached to, but it was very emotional, obviously, for the character that you play, and yet when it was over, I still was very confused about what the story was.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't get it. What just happened? And like it didn't really put me in the story, and everything else revolved around all the characters knowing what was happening, and I was just lost in terms of my motivation versus the character's motivation. Um, and there were fetch quests and things that were kind of slow,
Yeah.
like
It's a
escort
space
quests.
trucking game, so we can play that game if you want. Another game instead of the beat 'em up. Let's see. All right. Does this game have you transport things from one space station to the other?
Yes, but the thing is, I only played for 2 hours, so I don't know if we can play the game for very long. I'll have a lot of I don't know because
But
I did like
there
2 or 3
there
missions.
will be at least 10 things that you will see in the first hour. Sorry,
Yeah.
so we got one. Have you
Okay.
had to fly through a meteor? What do you call it? Like an area with
Asteroid field.
asteroid field.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I did. That came super early on.
This has to be like, first hour. Was there like an area in space and there was a giant space station and you're fighting a lot of tiny enemies around it?
Actually, yes. That happened really early on. It even happened before you played in a cutscene, but yeah. Yeah, there's
While
another
you're
part where
playing
you
this
actually
game,
do it.
while you're flying, is there like a
Yes.
radio transmission and a lot of characters are telling you stuff, but 80% of them is sci-fi jargon that you don't really understand, but you pretend that you do.
I think it's like 90% of it's jargon, but yes, yes, and yes.
Do you need to escort a ship without it
Y-
being destroyed in this game?
yes. That was literally the first mission that I
That was the
got.
first mission. So there's the
Yeah.
second mission is to transport stuff from one place to the other, but we also said that.
Yes, exactly.
Do you upgrade your ship?
I don't know. I
Ah,
didn't get to that part yet.
okay.
Within the first 2 hours,
Hmm.
I actually no, you can. Yes, I
Yeah.
didn't have the resources for it. Yes, you do upgrade your ship.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Do you carry two types of weapon? One of them is a rapid laser thing,
Yes. And
and
the
the other
other.
one is a homing laser thing.
Oh, this one wasn't homing. It
Uh huh.
was one rapid fire thing and a
Yeah.
slow moving projectile that explodes.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty close. But yeah, definitely two weapons.
How many are there?
But
We're at 9 questions, so we have one more.
more
Let me see. Like,
wormhole. The wormhole question. Do you go through a wormhole?
oh yeah, the
That's like
wormhole. Is it like wormhole fast? What do you call it? Speed of light.
fast travel thing.
Speed of light
Yes.
thing.
The answer is yes.
Cool.
It's like one of the first things you encounter. So yeah, check, 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 all the way through.
It's one of those. Uh, is
It's one
is
of those.
is the
It,
universe at jeopardy, or it's too early to tell?
the universe is at jeopardy within the first cutscene.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is that I felt like they did a lot of things well, but they were. It feels like I could be wrong. Maybe someone else is going to play this game and be like, Osama, you're wrong. I actually
Hmm.
really liked it, but it feels like the game is aiming to be way bigger than it can with the mechanics it has.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I'm part of a universe if I cannot leave this ship
Yeah.
and nobody else can leave their ship and I'm constantly flying all the time and there are no space stations that I'm exploring on the inside. Like that feels like too much of a disconnect, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not part of this universe. I'm separate to it. So like I don't know. I could be wrong. Like it could be just a preference thing. But that like as soon as I realized, oh, I'm never going to leave the ship, I lost interest in it because of all the RPG elements in it when I just wanted to play dogfights.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
worked on a game like this back in the day.
Oh yeah.
It never. Yeah. So like we were trying to make a game in which like you can do like inspired by Freelancer and Colony
Yeah.
Wars. I don't even know if you remember these games. They're like late
Freelancer. Yeah.
'90s,
Absolutely.
early 2000 games.
Mhm.
Yeah, like getting the right sense of speed and the right sense of scale on these games can get quite tricky.
Mhm.
Just because of like you navigating space. in actual
Yes.
space. All of the, like, a lot of the things that you would normally need to utilize,
Hmm.
or like, in world building, in which like things relate to each other, kind of lose that sense of relativity in space. You kind of need to do some other tricks to get
That's
that
true.
that same kind of illusion. But they're
That's true.
fun to make. But almost
Yeah.
always, like, you want to do these things in which, like, you want to go into the interiors, you want to land on planets, and then
Yeah.
the more you want to do these things, the more you realize how much more things you need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. It's a I wouldn't necessarily want to do these things if you weren't trying to pull me into this story that couldn't exist in a world where you stay in your ship the whole time.
yeah,
Like this wasn't a you accidentally go into a wormhole and now you're in another side of the galaxy and now you have to find your way home, and of course your air in your ship is running out. You only have 30 days. Good luck, and you can't leave it because you're in another quadrant of the universe or whatever it is. That wasn't this. This is like you're still in the same place, but for whatever reason you can't leave your ship now. And it
ah,
just that disconnect was odd. You follow what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I
Like I
understand.
see a giant space station and there's no way to go inside constantly.
I see.
There's another like spaceport. Other people, I guess, are going inside, but you can't always. And there's no anyway. It's fine. It feels really good. There are some things they did really well. It's not for me, but that doesn't make it a bad game. I'm sure other people will appreciate it.
That's cool, man. You played this on
So
Game Pass?
I did play it on Game Pass, and I played another game on Game Pass, a third one that I can talk
Oh,
about very briefly because I played it very briefly.
okay.
Um, it's called Edge of Eternity. It was an RPG, and basically, it had the longest, most boring tutorial fight I have ever played. And I stopped after this tutorial fight. So basically, actually, it was technically the second fight. The first fight, the tutorial fight, was you fighting against another character where it just taught you the moves, attack and block, and practically nothing else, which thankfully overstayed its welcome only by about 5 minutes. It was a
Okay.
10-minute fight that should have been 5 minutes. Then the next fight, which lasted closer to 30 to 45 minutes, was basically one where you had a party and you took turns attacking this giant robot, and you just did that. Like just basically you had to look at who that robot was going to attack and choose block, and if they're going to attack that, everyone else had to attack, and you did that forever, and his health bar was ridiculously long, and you're like, okay, I get it, 5 minutes later, but the fight lasts 30 minutes.
Well, what
And
kind
I'm
of
like,
game is
if
this, Osama? It's an RPG?
it's like a turn-based Final Fantasy style RPG where you just input commands for characters and they do their attack, and then there's like the type
I see.
the yeah, like that kind of turn-based thing. It's basically choose from a menu a series of attacks, but the initial like fight was so tedious and badly balanced and didn't respect my time that it robbed me of any desire to keep playing.
Oh, that's a shame.
And it is a shame. It's heartbreaking, but I mean, yeah. So I have no idea how good or bad the game is. I just couldn't play after that one fight, and I did beat the fight. I was stubborn enough to see it to the end, and then I just had no desire to continue.
Okay.
Yeah,
The name is it's reminding me of a book. I think there's like a Ken
Edge of
Follett book.
Eternity.
Yeah, Edge of
Really?
Eternity. It's very familiar to me. I was kind of trying to think if I've like I'm look it up really quickly. Yeah, it is. It's a Ken Follett book.
Huh? You're right. It's
Yeah,
the same name.
I wonder if it's
I
related to the game in any way.
This does like I don't know for sure, but judging on the dialogue writing in the game, I would say it's not related to any work of literature that had any sense of popularity at any point.
Yeah,
It's no. I don't know. It could be, but I don't think so.
yeah.
Have you read the book?
No, no, I haven't. I don't usually read fiction, so it's I've been out of the loop on that for a while.
Okay.
Ah,
Yeah, I haven't read. I used to read a lot of fiction. I haven't in a while. I've been reading more pragmatic books.
yeah. Reading
Yeah.
anything lately?
Oh, yeah, I could go over. I've actually read 3 books in the last week,
Ah,
which is
okay.
more than my
Wow.
average. Yeah, like I mentioned, I had 2 days, 2 lazy days off where I could just like do nothing. And so, really quickly, the first is a book called Venture Deals.
Hmm.
It's called Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer and Venture Capitalist. And it's more about like that world, the venture capitalist world. What jargon do they use? What concepts do they have? How do they raise money? That kind of thing. So, kind of bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. I'm really curious about that world. And I read this book. It reads like a textbook, and yet, but it's still very informative. So it's not
Yeah,
a thing I would pick up as light reading. But if you're interested in that, it's actually gets to the point quickly and really talks about concepts I didn't know about before.
that's
So
cool.
recommend in that very, very limited context. The second book I read was called Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. I personally did not find this book very useful. It might give people some tools about how to have difficult conversations. I don't think it's a bad book. I've read so many leadership books that talk about these concepts already that I didn't learn anything new.
Hmm.
So it might be for someone else, but for me, it's like, okay, I already, there's nothing new here.
There's two books
Nothing.
I read around similar topics that I found interesting. Maybe you would like, or maybe you've read them before. One of them is
Yes.
called Nonviolent Communication,
Ooh,
which I
I
found to
like
be
that.
very, very cool. Like, it's about like trying to find. It's basically is how you navigate conversations, even if you have a big conflict.
Hmm.
Uh, I found that to be very good. And there was another book called Never Split the Difference, and it's about
Really?
negotiation techniques.
I really like the name of that book. Never
Yeah,
Split the Difference.
Never Split the
Uh,
Difference. I think it's the writer of that book. He used to be an FBI hostage negotiator.
oh wow, I've heard of this book.
It's good.
I remember that.
It's good.
The one of the ones I read on a similar topic is actually called Getting More.
Hmm.
And it's actually, the full title is Getting More: How You Can Negotiate to Succeed in Work and Life,
Yeah.
which sounds like a negotiation book, but it really is a communication book in general, just how to talk to people, how to align on goals, how to communicate your goals, how, like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I thought that book was brilliant, and that's why I think I didn't think that Crucial Conversations was as good, because it felt very one on one compared to those. There's also
Hmm.
another leadership book called The 1 Minute Manager, which is super super short, but it really does a good job of explaining situational leadership and how you just, if you're a lead or a leader in one way or another, don't you have multiple tools, and you have to, it helps you identify what situations to use which tool. An example, like a concrete example, is that micromanaging gets a bad rap, but actually there are situations that call for micromanaging. The problem happens when there are managers who only have that one tool and don't adapt it to the situation, and they micromanage people who shouldn't be micromanaged in the task that they're specifically doing at that point. But many situations call for a more directive approach because of time constraints, because of like the inability of the person to do the task for XYZ reasons, where you can turn, like, pick up that tool. So
Yeah.
anyway, I thought there were better books. I don't think it said anything wrong, so I don't disagree with the book. It just felt too 101 with no real takeaways. And the final book I read is my favorite of the three. It's called Backable: The Surprising Truth Behind What Makes People Take a Chance on You. And that book was really cool. It really
Okay.
gave you a lot of tools about like how to. It's funny because that wasn't the intention going into reading this book, but I took a lot of takeaways from my presentations, lectures specifically. Basically, a lot of the book is how to pitch things, and as someone who teaches, that teaching is pretty much pitching concepts and ideas.
All the
There's
time.
more yeah, exactly. And there were so many takeaways about how to, like, even like how to prepare, how to practice, best approaches to do that, with concrete examples from interviews of a lot of people who are successful at pitching things. So this book, actually, I would recommend it for anybody who wants to do any level of public speaking, or any pitches, any teaching, anything related to that. I think there's enough takeaways in there, really, really solid ones, that make it worthwhile.
Wow, that's really cool, man. I'm gonna have a read through some of that.
Awesome.
Cool.
So, what about you? I think I monopolized this episode, and I'm really, really sorry. I feel terrible.
No, not at all. I really enjoyed our conversation, and we got the you won two of my impromptu game shows.
You're really good at this. By the way, this should be like a YouTube series. We should just make a list and take all the games of that genre through the list to see
No,
how many tropes they fit.
making it up on the fly is half the fun, though.
It
So
really
so
is.
it's
It
a
really
Twitch show, not a YouTube
is.
show.
I love it. Let's make it happen.
No, it was good, man. I could talk about some of the stuff next week. It's not like I enjoyed hearing you talk about your games and all of that. And we're already we've already gone
We're
past
at
the 15
time.
minute mark. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it's time to put a doily in this one.
Let's do it.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Next, send us emails at info@thehabibis.com. Follow us on all the social media stuff. But that's the episode for this week. Join us next week, same time, same place. For the time being, salam.
Salam.
That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I am Fawzi Masmar, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Fawzi Masmar. My fellow Habibis were Osama Dorias, who you can find on Twitter at Osama Dorias, and Rami Ismail, who you can find on Twitter at THA_Rami. Send us your questions, stories, and suggestions via info@thehabibis.com. Intro and outro music was provided by Malik Zubayla, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Handi. The Habibis is a weekly podcast about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcasting service, or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening. Salam.